Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.
Hey, welcome to another edition of Overtime with Dr. Michael Jacobs. I'm Chip Franklin, where we talk about, just what it's like to be in the major leagues and what it does to your body. The first thing I got to ask you is, because I live in San Diego and I watch a lot of Padres games, and I listen to the local sports talk about Manny Machado, who is, a former Oriole and just an amazing superstar. However, I was watching both games, the Orioles game and watching the Padres afterwards. And it's interesting. Jackson Holliday hit a ground ball to second base, and he damn near beat it out. I mean, he put his head down. He's a 21-year-old kid. Boom. And then Manny, if he did the same thing, he would just jog along. And people to first base. And people have said that's understandable because he's just trying to make his career last longer. So I, in addition to asking you, let's bring Bordy into the show. Of course, star of the Bmore baseball podcast with Jerry Coleman. Both of you. So does this happen over a 15-year career that there's moments where you kind of just, I hesitate to say it, but dog it to save your body? Mike?
Okay, well, let me answer this first. If you ever dog it in the major leagues, it will come back to get you. I promise you that. And I'm not a big proponent of it. I understand why guys do it. Hit a ground ball to second base. 99% of the time, there isn't a mistake and you're thrown out. So why waste your energy? If you practice that way, it's going to show up at the wrong time for your team. I think it is so selfish and unprofessional to jog down the baseline. If you can't run hard, if you can't give effort, in my opinion, you shouldn't even be playing because you're letting guys down, your other teammates. So I think you take it personally. There's one thing in this game that any player can control, and it's your effort. Why not run hard out of the box? Why not always think extra base? Why not assume that a guy's going to bobble it so you can beat it out to get on first base that might end up leading to the winning run? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Constantly putting pressure on an opposing team's defense is the name of the game. And if you can't do it, I don't think you should be on our team. I love the way the Orioles run the bases, always going hard, always putting the pressure on. And that's why I think they're going to be the best offensive team in baseball this year.
Let me ask you both. Hamstring issues come sometimes on that last push, running down to first base, or trying to turn a single into a double. How is that a very difficult one to recover from, a hamstring? Is that one that can haunt you the whole season?
Any muscle pull can haunt you the whole season because these muscles take more than 14, 18 days to heal. So you're always pushing it, and the players want to play. The team needs them. And so particularly if you're not a speed guy, you're always coming back before maybe it's 90% healed, and you run that risk. And like Mike said, it's professional sports. Professional sports medicine is not sports medicine. Sports medicine involves doing what's best for the patient. Professional sports medicine is about a compromise between your career, your salary, your team, where you are, where you are on the food chain. If you're on the top of the food chain, you might get a little more of a break on it. So sure, anytime you go 100% when you're not 100%, anything can happen. And to emphasize what Mike said, that's also true. And what bothers me more than running to first base, and we've seen it with some of the Oriole miscues, people not running out pop-ups and fly balls. I mean, that ball Mateo missed, if that wasn't, was that Bobby Witt running, I think? Yes. He was running, and he can run it. Yeah. That turned into a triple. And there'd be a lot of guys stuck on first base on that and running. I've been to spring training 30 years, and early on when I was younger and more into it, and before the legalities became so crazy, they sometimes let me go on the minor league field and catch fly balls. And let me tell you, and Mike knows this, these high pop-ups with the backspin they have are incredibly hard to catch for me. And catchers, especially when the ball's coming backwards and they have those big fluffy mitts, I can see how catchers drop pop-ups. Can't you, Mike? These pop-ups in the wind are not easy to catch, are they, Mike?
Well, you're dealing with, high skies, the wind, all kinds of factors, man. That's why pop-ups down in spring training might be the most entertaining thing in all of spring.
Yeah.
Because
Particularly when you're shortstop going out to me and the ball's back spinning back to you.
Yeah.
It can't be that hard to overrun the ball, can it?
Oh yeah, I can. No,
Oh yeah, and have you ever backpedaled and fell on your ass because you came in too much on a ball? Yeah, that's got to hurt and feel weird, right?
No
yeah,
doubt.
I think the only caveat to that is, if you're Kirk Gibson, who clearly can't run, but you're putting him in for one big bat. If you're Freeman in the World Series, and you're not right, you're not going to expect him to hump it down to first base. But those guys are on you. They're like one-time swing guys, don't you think, Mike? And that's a whole different category from just not running out ground balls.
No,
well, he doesn't dog. He never dogged it on the field, and he doesn't dog it on the podcast either. That's Mike Bordick. We'll see you next week, buddy. Thanks.
All right, see you, Chip.
All right,
see you, Doc.
All right. So, Doc, I got another one for you. Along this lines, we talked about arm fatigue. What exactly, when we hear a pitcher has arm fatigue, can that just be something benign and it was tired, or is it always an indication of something more?
It's like saying you have back pain. You just don't know. The player may have anything from he may be coming off the flu. He may not have slept well. He may have his mind on personal issues. He just may not feel good. He may be somebody who is just trying to help the team, has pushed the extra couple innings he shouldn't have pushed. It may be somebody who does have significant disease or pathology in their shoulder who's living with it. You have to remember, and we didn't talk about this with the Tommy John injuries, but there are a limitless number of pitchers out there pitching, for example, who, if you look at their elbow MRIs, they look horrendous, but they're pitching fine. And when the MRIs and the result don't always line up. So that's the problem with signing veteran players. I think in the offseason, the Orioles looked at Hoffman, who had a good year last year, but I think they passed on him for some reason. And I have no idea what's going on with him. But more likely than not, you never know when one of these players who has not a great looking shoulder, elbow MRI or back MRI, but who's been playing great, when they're going to fall off the ledge and go from an asset to somebody who's just not as good as you hoped. And that's the spinning dice that you have to do as a general manager.
The New England Journal of Medicine, actually, and I know this because I had an MRI on my back and I have nothing in between my vertebrae anymore. And my spine is actually beginning to fuse itself. I'm not in any pain. So when a chiropractor saw my MRI, he flipped. And I took it to this guy named Dr. Brophy, one of the top orthopedic surgeons in California. And he said, "Are you in any pain?" I go, "No." And he goes, "Good. Don't do this. Don't, but when you feel pain." And so I've had that for 15 years. And they were going to, some people wanted to operate 15 years ago. And since then, I've played 1,000 rounds of golf and, and run. It is fascinating to me, how you guys evaluate. And then and you're a good doc, and that's how you got the job. Some doctors don't listen to the people and ask them that basic question: "Are you in any pain?" Right. And
look, to some degree, surgeons are hammers looking for nails, and it's just like anything else. You see terrible hip x-rays, but the patient's doing fine. To me, there's no reason to intervene. When I'm very bow-legged, and when I was in my 30s, I had a couple knee doctors telling me I should get my knee straightened to prevent me from getting arthritis when I'm old. I'm now 71, and my knees are fine. So you can go a bridge too far in this. Just like I always like making baseball analogies. I can think of a number of GMs who made a trade too far. I remember when Bruce Sutter was getting traded around, you could have argued that the team in the middle went a trade too far when they got him and moved him.
Right.
That's the art of any professional career, is sensing the subtleties and doing what you think is best, whether you're a stockbroker or whatever. That's
along those lines. Let me interrupt you real quick. That's a great point, because when you're talking about the subtleties, let's go back to the first question with Bordy about dogging it. It's not dogging it when a pitcher, like from the old school pitchers, throws 115 pitches, because they're not all at top velo. They understand that if it's a 4-1 game and it's a 7th inning and number 8 batters up, he doesn't have to bring it all in there. He just has to get the guy out. He can play contact ball instead of trying to strike everybody out. And I'm wondering, when they're talking to these kids about trying to get more innings out of them, and maybe they're not doing it as much as they used to, but when they're and maybe in the minors and the first few years in the bigs, do they ever bring you in and like, do you ever talk to these guys about, maybe fewer curveballs that'd be harder on the shoulder, or, maybe more two-seamers to move it around instead of just trying to overpower everybody? Does that go into a discussion you have with players?
Back in the 90s, before baseball got so corporate, before GMs became non-players, when things were a lot more artsy and, hitting and pitching coaches were basically looking at players, I would frequently interact with them pitching coaches. Some didn't like talking to me, some did, but we would discuss it. And there's no question, if you talk to Palmer or Smoltz, they were trained to go 9, 10 innings by mixing things up. And obviously, we've had this discussion before. The new age of TrackMan is throw as hard as you can till your arm falls off and get somebody else. So it's a philosophy. And as I said, the way to stop it is easy. MLB has to say you only have 11 pitchers on your roster. And then you just can't, you can't have a good start being 4.5 innings, even if it's only 1 run. And it's just nutty. And I remember talking to a couple of pitching coaches, and they'd be sometimes when the team was hitting, they'd be in the back, and I'd talk to them, and they'd roll their eyes back, and it'd be like the late innings. We'd be up by 4 runs. They'd bring in a pitcher, and he'd walk 3 guys, and I'd look at him, go, "You got to lose your mind when you're up by 5 runs and you're walking guys."
Yeah.
And Palmer would say, "Hey, hit it. If it goes out, it goes out, but you still got to hit it out." And the pitching coach would say, that's why I have an ulcer. He goes, "You tell these guys in this situation, make them put the ball in play. You got 8 guys behind you." Okay. But again, the mentality has changed. And I think you see all the catchers looking at their wrist guards 24/7, looking at the scouting reports. And I think a lot of times they get so caught up and they've got to do what the scouting report says, they forget to look at where they are in the game and say, "Hey, we're up by 5 runs. Make them put the ball in play before you start getting cute."
Last question for you here is, they were some speculation, and I heard Ben McDonald make it when last time I saw Mountain pitch, he was throwing a lot of splitters, and because they were maybe guessing because his velocity wasn't back 100%. And that, people aren't looking for splitters from him. He threw, the last game I saw him pitch, I think he threw and he had 4 batters. I think he threw about 50% splitters. Obviously that takes the same amount of rotation from your arm. You're throwing at full speed with, your fingers slowing the ball down by splitting it out. Is there one pitch other than just that 4-seam fastball that can also cause arm damage? Or what do you think when you see a pitcher who's known for velocity throwing splitters?
Well, as I said to you before about Lee Smith, everybody's physique is different. So big guys, big hands, loose joints, they may not have that much trouble throwing a splitter. Everybody's mechanics depend on how their body has got its collagen and its biology there. In Batista's case, he's a big man. He's got big hands. He may be throwing a splitter because he feels like it's moving better, or he may be working on it if they bring him in a somewhat low leverage situation. You can't possibly know that. I will say that before he got hurt, I thought he got away with more horrible splitters than anybody in baseball. And as I said to you before, hitters have told me a hanging split's just about the easiest pitch to hit. But I guess if you're looking for 100 miles an hour, the velocity differential can make up for a lot, even if the ball hangs. So it may well be that if his velocity is down a tick, he may feel that pitch is working better. So there's no way to say what hurts a pitcher more or less, just depending on how they're put together, how their wrist and hand and fingers feel. And that's why, to me, you still need traditional pitching coaches, and you just can't do things off of a statistic screen.
All right, this is overtime. Before we leave here, I got to ask you this. Has a player ever said to you, "It hurts when I do this," and you said, "Don't do that"?
I always go back to a friend of mine who was a specialist in orthopedic feet. She was a foot and ankle doctor, and she was very well respected in a very elite area. And she told me once that a woman came from about 2 hours away and came in with 2 bags, and one bag had shoes she dumped, and another bag had shoes she dumped. And the patient said, "Well, these hurt and these don't." And she said, "Well, where are those?" And and the patient said, "I didn't come here for a smart remark." So she had the patient stand up on a piece of paper, drew an outline of her foot, and then put some of the shoes that hurt over that outline. And it was inside the size of her foot. And
That's
she said,
funny.
"Well, you can't put that inside this and not have it hurt." So
All right.
that's pretty much where that goes.
So for our next edition of Overtime, we're going to talk about 2 things: the most painful injury and fat umpires, and why the league had to get some way. So not now, but next week.
Well, maybe we could look at those pointed shoes you're wearing and see why you wear those fashionable cowboy boots. Okay.
Yeah, right. There you go. Again, that's Dr. Michael Jacobs. This is Overtime. I'm Chip Franklin. We'll see you on the next one. Thank you.
Have a great day.
Do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal.